What's your favorite fast food restaurant? McDonald's, Mickey D's, Burger King, In-N-Out, Sonic, Taco Bell? Hey, don't hate on Taco Bell now, all right? I know their beef may not be real ground beef, but it's still delicious. Cane's, Chick-fil-A, what about Wendy's? I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, like many of you know. And when I was in college, when I was a sophomore at LSU, Wendy's was doing this promotion with their Frosties, their popular dessert item that's like frozen yogurt in a cup. On the back of their Frosties cups, they put these vouchers that you could cut out, and if you submitted the vouchers at a local Wendy's, you could get prizes, a free soda, a free cheeseburger, free fries, kind of like, McDonald's does with their whole Monopoly deal. Well, I had two friends during this time, friends I'm still buddies with today. Their names are Nick and Phil. And when Phil and Nick learned that Wendy's was doing this promotion and how you could collect these vouchers on the back of their Frosties cups and how you could submit them for prizes, they set out on a mission not to collect two Frosties with vouchers on them or even three Frosties with vouchers on them, but they decided they wanted to collect 40 of these Frosties. And they came up with a brilliant strategy to do this. How did they do this? Did they eat 40 Frosties? No, they didn't. They were smarter than that. They came up with a brilliant plan, a brilliant strategy, one that was so much more efficient. Like Navy SEALs on a covert mission. In the middle of the night, they snuck to this one Wendy's on the campus of LSU after it had closed, after everyone in town was sound asleep. And when they got to this Wendy's, they drove around to the back of this Wendy's where the dumpster was. They popped open the lid of that dumpster, jumped head first inside, dug around furiously, and tore open pile after pile of trash bag in search of those precious little yellow Frosties cups, like they were in search of the Holy Grail. They did this on multiple nights. It's crazy. College kids these days, right? Just kidding. If you're a college kid. This isn't the actual picture of a dumpster, but just to help you visualize what my friends did. I think this picture can help you do that. There's a picture of me in a dumpster. Meanwhile, during this time, I was attempting to transfer schools from LSU to NYU because my older brother lived and worked in New York City. And during this process, I thought it'd be cool to make a trip to New York City just so that I can get more familiar with the campus of NYU and more familiar with the city of Manhattan. Yet I was a poor college kid, and I couldn't afford to buy a plane ticket to get up to New York, so I didn't know how I was going to get up there. Well, one day, my friend Phil and I were hanging out. He told me about he and Nick's crazy midnight adventures of how they jumped into this Wendy's dumpster like little raccoons digging through your trash in the middle of the night. I laughed, and I was really impressed by the boldness and the audacity of my friends. We continued hanging out. I told Phil eventually about my predicament of wanting to go to New York City, but how I didn't know how I was going to afford to get a plane ticket up there. Well, Phil then told me that he and Nick had collected and found so many of these Frosties cups that still had their vouchers on them, cups that customers had just thrown away because nobody cares about that thing except my friends Phil and Nick. And how they had found and collected so many Frosties cups and cut out so many of those vouchers that they actually qualified for the top prize that Wendy's was giving out during this promotion to whoever had collected a certain number, a very high amount of these vouchers, a free round-trip plane ticket to anywhere in the U.S. And then suddenly, my friend Phil said to me, "Hey, John, I'm going to give you all of those vouchers that I found so that you could submit them and so that you could buy a plane ticket and fly to New York." I was stunned. My friend Phil had just gone through some pretty extreme measures and lengths to collect all of these cups and all of these vouchers, yet without even blinking, without hesitation, he just gave them all away to me so that I could buy a plane ticket and fly to New York. Now, the plane ticket was through the airline AirTran, so my seat was a little loose on the plane and it was coming out of the ground. No, I'm just kidding. But, I know this is a funny story of two adventurous and bold college kids, but what my friend did touched me and blessed me significantly. He had just performed this incredible, generous deed because of his love for me. And again, he just gave away something to me that was incredibly valuable. In Scripture, we see many incidents of people who performing similar, incredible, and generous deeds. And one of these people is one of my favorite characters in all of Scripture, Mary. I see Mary as this person who is so raw and passionate in her love for Jesus, in her admiration for Jesus. But what I love about Mary is that she was someone who was real in her relationship with Jesus. She was so honest with Jesus, and she was so authentic in her relationship with Jesus. Mary had two siblings. She had a sister named Martha and a brother named Lazarus. At one point, Lazarus got so sick that he actually died. He was in the tomb for 4 days. And check this out. Jesus does something incredible. He raises Lazarus from the dead. Obviously, Mary and Martha were incredibly touched by this miracle that Jesus performed, so touched that they held a dinner for him. The Apostle John, in his gospel, describes the dinner, but he also describes something astonishing that Mary does at this dinner. In John chapter 12, verses 1 through 8, the apostle describes what Mary did this way. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here, a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. Then Mary, she took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume, and she poured it all out onto Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He didn't say this because he actually cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And as keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Leave her alone, Jesus replied. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. If you're like me, after hearing this story, you might be imagining taking your Acqua di Gio cologne or your Curve cologne or your Chanel Coco perfume if you're a lady, and how strange it might be to pour it onto someone's feet and wipe it with your hair. My hair is a little short, so it'd be kind of hard. But let me just explain the context, because it is amazing, the context of this setting and what Mary did. You see, feet were a very dirty part of a person's body during these times. Some of you are like, during those times, I hate feet these days. I don't want anything to do with feet. But they were so dirty during these times that the only people that really touched people's feet were slaves and servants. Not only did Mary touch Jesus' feet, but she did this in the middle of a meal. And she did this to express her gratitude for bringing her brother Lazarus to life. She saw Jesus now as more than just a man, more than a great teacher. She saw Jesus as the Christ, as the Messiah, as the one who was to come into the world and save all of humanity. And by pouring this perfume onto the feet of Jesus, Mary was acknowledging that she would follow Jesus wherever he led her. But what also makes what Mary did so astonishing is the value of this particular perfume. It was called spikenard. It was found somewhere in the Himalayas. It could be located somewhere in the Himalayas between Tibet and India. And in order to get your hands on this perfume, it had to be transported great distances across some of the most dangerous and treacherous terrain and mountains. This is why the perfume was so valuable and so special. It was a perfume that was so costly. Yet, for some reason, Mary decided that she would pour it all out for Jesus. My brother Josh, who I mentioned earlier, he lived for a few years in Stavanger, Norway. Anyone here ever been to Norway or any of the Scandinavian countries? Beautiful, beautiful countries. My brother lived and worked there, and his fiance, who was his girlfriend at the time, also lived and worked in Norway during that time. And eventually, my brother decided that he wanted to propose. So he had to get an engagement ring, of course. He ended up purchasing a ring here in the U.S. and had to figure out a way to get it to Norway. The only thing was, for some reason, Norway imposes these really heavy taxes, I should say, on certain valuable items that are shipped into the country, like engagement rings. So if my brother were to ship the ring from the U.S. to Norway, he would have had to pay a lot of money that he obviously wanted to avoid. But still, he wanted to get the ring to Norway so that he could propose. So he thought through what the next best option would be, what the most cost-effective option would be. And he thought of younger bro, John. I was living in Louisiana at the time, and he called me, and he's like, hey, John, I kind of got a little situation, man. So I bought a ring in the U.S., kind of got to get over here to Norway so I can propose. If I purchased your plane ticket, would you be willing to bring the ring to me and come visit me in Norway? I told him, yes. Are you kidding me? I said to him, of course I'll come to Norway. Would I go to Norway? You're going to buy my plane ticket, dude. Are you kidding me? Of course I would go. How could you even ask me that? I love traveling. I was so excited that my brother was going to buy me this plane ticket so that I could fly to one of the Scandinavian countries, a country I had never been to before. Woo! I was so excited, but I was so excited in that moment that I wasn't thinking about how diamond rings can actually be pretty valuable and how in order for my brother to propose, I would have to safely bring this ring over to him in Norway. That it dawned on me that I would be the one who was responsible for getting this ring to him so that he could do something just a little important, just propose to the person he wanted to live the rest of his life with. I was like, whoa. And then my brother, who's a big spender, told me exactly how much the ring cost, and it wasn't cheap. And I was like, hold up, whoa, you want me to bring that? What? How much did that cost? I'm bringing that thing to you. Are you serious? What do you expect me to do? You want me to just put this thing in my pocket and bring it to you, halfway across the world? Are you crazy? What do you think I'm like, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible? I'm not going to bring that thing over to you. I didn't want to be responsible for bringing this item such a great distance to my brother. That was the most stressful plane ride of my life. Plane rides. I'd be in the plane and we'd be somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, and it'd be in the middle of the night, and I'd have to get up from my seat to go to the restroom, and I didn't want to leave the ring unattended in my seat, so I put the ring in my pocket, and I would go to the restroom, and I'd be hyperventilating as I was going. I'd be patting myself down constantly. Is the ring still here? Do I still got it? Okay, still got it. I'm good. Just going to the restroom. There'd be a guy who would see me hyperventilating. He'd be like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just hate flying. When I have to carry something that's more expensive than my life. I'd be walking around, and someone would pass by me in the cabin. I'd be like, get back. I don't have anything expensive in my pocket. Stay back. And he'd be like a mother holding her baby, trying to get it to go to sleep. When I got to Norway and I got off the plane, I looked at my brother. I was like, dude, she better say yes. I was so stressed out. I ended up having a great time with my brother and his fiancée in Norway. Eventually, I returned to the U.S., and my brother proposed, and she said yes. And afterwards, my brother disclosed to his fiancée the real reason why I had traveled to Norway, which was, of course, to bring this ring over to my brother so that he could propose to her. And she was so touched by this. She thought it was so special that I would travel this far to bring the ring just so that my brother could propose. And it made his proposal that much more meaningful. This perfume that Mary poured onto Jesus' feet, again, had to be transported crazy distances through the most treacherous terrain, which is what made it so valuable and so special. Yet for some reason, Mary still chose to pour it all out onto Jesus. And after she did this, it says, the house was filled with the fragrance of their perfume. Mary poured out this precious, costly perfume on the feet of Jesus. And this beautiful fragrance was created in the house. It filled the air. Yet there was someone there who objected to what Mary did. There was someone there who saw what Mary did and had a problem with it. Judas. It says Judas objected to what Mary did. Mary did something to love and bless Jesus, to show her gratitude and her affection for Jesus. Yet when she did this, Judas criticized her, he questioned her, he doubted her. I lived 5 years of my life in Southern California, and during this season, during one season there, I was really seeking God for his guidance and his direction in my life and my future. I didn't know what he wanted me to do exactly in my future. And in an amazing way, God eventually revealed to me that he wanted me to go to this seminary called Fuller Seminary, and that his plan for my life was to serve him in ministry. I was incredibly touched when the Lord revealed this to me. It's still one of the happiest and sweetest moments of my life. I had been desperate for clarity and guidance, and the Lord gave me this. And I felt so honored. But soon this would turn into one of the darkest seasons of my life. I shared with some people close to me what the Lord had revealed to me, and these people didn't believe me. They questioned me. They told me that I was delusional. And they actually told me that I had heard God wrong, that he didn't tell me what I shared with them. One of these people I was living with and staying with in California, and over the past few weeks, we had had these contentious exchanges, all of these arguments about my future in the direction I felt like the Lord was leading me in my future. And this person disagreed with that direction so much, and he eventually became so infuriated with me, so fed up, that one morning he kicked me out of his house. I still remember that very morning. I was frantically running in and out of the house to my Honda SUV, piling up all of my belongings in my car, trying to leave that house as fast as I could because this person was so infuriated with me that he wanted me out immediately. This was such a painful time for me. Sometimes when we seek to love and follow Jesus and even obey his leading in our lives, our devotion and our love and our obedience to Jesus can create a fragrance that is pleasing to Jesus, much like Mary did. But this fragrance can be like a stench to others. People opposed me because of my attempt to do what the Lord had told me to do. And again, this was such a painful and dark time for me. But in the end, it was so worth it. I wouldn't change a thing. God gave me the strength to follow him, to listen to him, to obey him. And this set the course to a meaningful and fulfilling life that I am so thankful for. Being a pastor is not even what I always thought I would be. I studied business in college, and there were so many times in my life where I had no clue what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be in the future. At one time in my life, I even wanted to be a DJ. Y'all imagine that? Hands up for Jesus. My DJ name was going to be Dijon. But it was so challenging when I went through this season. These people that I loved, that I cherished, thought what I wanted to do was insane. Dude, John, just go get a job, dude. You want to go to seminary? Go make some money. Just go get any job. But even though this was such a painful season for me, again, in the end, it was all worth it. I actually wouldn't even be here standing with you today if I hadn't followed the Lord and obeyed his call. In 2017, I graduated from that seminary. I moved back to Louisiana. And the way I really learned about this church, about Gateway South, was through someone that I went to this seminary with in California, John Ang, our former Grove pastor and now our Pflugerville campus pastor. If I didn't follow the Lord's leading in my life, I wouldn't have developed the wonderful relationships that I've developed with you all here at this church. I'm so thankful that God gave me the strength to do this. Judas thought what Mary did was absolutely a waste. He thought it was illogical. He thought it was stupid, but Jesus didn't. Not Jesus. Friends, let me just encourage you. Nothing that you ever do for Jesus is a waste. Not one thing. When you're kind to your family members, or you go out of your way to help your friends, when you give financially to God through our church, when you love those around you, your neighbors, you are making a difference. Even if you can't see it, even if you don't know what impact you are making. For those of us who serve, our volunteers and our staff here at Gateway South, this has been such a challenging and brutal season of ministry, hasn't it? Maybe you're a life group leader or you're a community group leader here at the church, and at some point during the pandemic, people just stopped coming to your group. Your group switched to meeting online on Zoom, and you show up on Zoom, and you're the only one there. Maybe you're zoomed out, you're Zoom fatigued. I get it, I'm zoomed out too. I'll be fine with never using Zoom again. I'm so zoomed out. I don't even like the C words with the letter Z in them these days. Someone's like, John, you want a zebra cake? I'm like, get that out of my face. Maybe you're a leader and you've organized events and your efforts, you questioned your efforts. No one registered for the event. No one showed up. Maybe you've thought to yourself, man, is this even worth it? But nothing you do and nothing you have ever done for Jesus or on behalf of Jesus is a waste. Jesus knows your heart. He sees your heart. He sees what you have done, and he is pleased. He is honored, and he will reward you in his own way. Sometimes I think, though, that God lets us go through these trials to see if we will really follow him and to see how much we really treasure him. This perfume was so valuable, but Mary was willing to pour it all out onto the feet of Jesus. Why? Because ultimately Mary treasured Jesus more than she treasured this expensive perfume. You know, it's easy to read this passage and to think to yourself, I'm like Mary or Jesus in this story. I'm not Judas. I know, I get it. But if you really dig into Judas's response, the reason Judas responded this way when Mary poured out this expensive perfume onto Jesus' feet was because he actually treasured money more than he treasured Jesus. Let me ask you, what do you treasure? What do you treasure right now? What do you treasure the most in your life? Ask yourself that question. And be honest, I still treasure a lot of things, and I still desire to have and experience a lot of things in my life, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But would you be willing to give it all up, whatever that is, pour it all out because you treasure Jesus even more? What do you treasure? Jesus wants us to treasure him more than anything else in our lives. God has taught me throughout my unique journey of life that what he wants me to treasure the most in life is him. God is a loving, good Father who is happy to give us gifts and blessings, our possessions, our family, our relationships, our friendships, our work. But at the end of the day, what God wants us to treasure the most in our lives is him. Mary treasured this perfume. Jesus more than this perfume, which is why she was able to pour it all out for Jesus. But maybe you're thinking, wait, hold up, John. Why is Judas the bad guy here? I know it feels like we're beating up Judas a lot today, right? I agree with Judas, you might be thinking. I think Judas had a point. I mean, this perfume was worth an entire year's wages, and Mary just poured it all out in an instant. Are you kidding? Surely this perfume could have been used for other reasons. It could have been used to help the poor. Even if it wasn't used to help the poor, even if the money sold or the perfume sold and the money collected wasn't used to help the poor, it could have been used for tons of other altruistic reasons. Mary wasted this perfume. She did not use this perfume wisely, you may be thinking. And maybe you're thinking, and what's up with this statement Jesus makes about the poor at the end? Did Jesus not care about the poor? That's kind of an odd statement. Well, in Luke 6, Jesus says, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh." Similarly, in Matthew 19, Jesus tells a young man, you know what? If you want to be perfect, go and sell what you possess and give it all to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And then come and follow me. Clearly, Jesus cared for the poor. He showed this all throughout his life. So then why did Jesus respond this way? Why did Jesus accept Mary's offering? In verse 7, Jesus says, "Leave her alone. She has done this to prepare me for my burial. You always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me." You see, during these times, perfumes were used often to anoint a dead body, to anoint and prepare a corpse for burial. So when Mary poured this perfume all onto Jesus' feet, she wasn't being reckless. She wasn't being irresponsible. She wasn't being wasteful. She was actually being prophetic. And Jesus knew that when Mary poured this perfume, this expensive, costly perfume all onto his feet, Jesus knew that it foreshadowed what soon he would have to do. He knew that what Mary did by pouring out this perfume symbolized the sacrifice that he would soon have to make, the sacrifice of himself. Mary's perfume, again, was so costly because it had to be carried and transported through dangerous terrain and such great distances. But what was even costlier was how God would give up his own son to die for the sins of the world, sins that he did not commit. Mary, yes, she poured out this perfume, but Jesus poured out himself. Jesus was God's perfume that he poured out for the world. Ephesians 5:2 says, "Walk in love just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God as a fragrant aroma." Yes, Mary touched someone's feet in the middle of a meal, probably broke all kind of cultural norms, probably offended tons of people at this dinner. But in the next chapter in John chapter 13, Jesus washes his disciples' feet, a symbol of how he came to this world to serve, ultimately by giving up his life. I believe Jesus also allowed Mary to do this because he knew that Mary poured out this perfume out of her love for him. This is one of the reasons why Jesus died. Jesus died and rose again from the dead because of how much he loved you, because he wanted our love. In other words, Jesus died so he could have a relationship with us. "16 years ago, two goofy college kids drove to this dumpster and jumped inside and dug around through this disgusting dumpster filled with all kind of germs and bacteria and who knows what. Why? Because they saw the prize that awaited them. Well, 2,000 years ago, Jesus jumped into this broken world, a world full of sin, hate, murder, greed, racism, disease, idolatry. And he died and he rose again from the dead. Why? Because he saw the prize that awaited him, a relationship with you, his bride, forever. Jesus gave up his life so that he could be in a relationship with you. So let me ask you, do you have a relationship with Jesus? Just 1 year removed from when my friend Phil jumped into that dumpster. We were hanging out one day, and he told me about how I could have a relationship with Jesus. I wasn't even a Christian 1 year before he had jumped into this dumpster. And so when we were hanging out, and he was telling me about how I could have a relationship with Jesus, it compelled me. And I took a chance, and I made a simple prayer, one not eloquent at all. But in that prayer, I just invited Jesus into my life and into my heart. And that completely changed my life. You can experience the same thing and receive a relationship with Jesus just by inviting Jesus into your life and into your heart. You can do that today through a simple prayer, either out loud or silently in your heart, and saying, Jesus, I believe in you. I believe in what you did for me. I want it to count for me. I invite you into my life and my heart. I want to have a relationship with you. For the rest of you, is there an area of your life that you have not poured out to Jesus? Is there an area of your life that you are holding back from Jesus? Where are you not trusting Jesus today? What's an area of your life where it's just really hard for you to trust Jesus right now? Is there something that God is asking you to do that maybe you've been hesitant to do because you're afraid of the Judases in the world? I don't know what that is. Maybe it's serving. Maybe it's giving. Maybe it's going to counseling or a recovery ministry. Maybe it's forgiving that one person in your life. Maybe it's sharing about Jesus with that friend that you're afraid to talk about Jesus with because you don't want that person to reject you and never be friends with you again. If there is something, friends, that Jesus is asking you to pour out, to surrender to him, ask him today to help you to take a step in that direction in obedience to him. You can trust and surrender every single area of your life to Jesus. Why? Because of how much he loved you. He is committed to you. He is committed to your life. He showed us this on the cross. If he would go that far for you, why wouldn't he take care of you? I know it's not easy, y'all. I know there are many days where I'm not there, where I'm just struggling to trust God in certain areas of my life. I really know it's hard. But keep trusting Jesus. Keep pouring your life out to him. Some of you are here and you're thinking and saying to yourself, John, I have poured everything out for Jesus. And so far it hasn't panned out. I'm still waiting for Jesus to answer that prayer. I'm trusting Jesus. I'm waiting patiently for him, but he still hasn't come through yet in this area of my life. Maybe you serve here. You serve during this challenging season of ministry and you're short of volunteers. Your team is falling apart. You feel like you're barely limping along. You're even trying to recruit new volunteers to help you. You can't find any. Like, Jesus, don't you see what I'm doing? I'm trying my best. Help me. I feel like I'm pouring it all out to you, Jesus. Why don't you help me? Don't you see what I'm doing for you? He does. Jesus sees what you do for him. He sees all that you have done for him. And again, friends, it is not a waste. Nothing you do for Jesus, nothing you have ever done for Jesus is a waste. When I was in California going through that challenging season of my life, and the people close to me made me feel like the worst person in the world, I was like, God, where are you? That season was not a waste, and nothing that you ever do for Jesus is a waste. Keep praying, keep trusting, keep serving him, keep pouring out your heart to Jesus, keep being honest with Jesus. He sees what you do. He will honor you. You know, in the book of Mark, there's a similar story of a woman who pours out perfume onto Jesus. Many scholars believe that this story in Mark actually reflects the same event and passage that we read in the book of John. In the version in Mark, Mary pours out this perfume onto Jesus, onto the feet of Jesus. And after she poured out all of this perfume onto Jesus, Jesus says this: wherever the gospel is preached in all of the world, what she has done will be told in memory of her. Mary poured out all of this perfume because of her gratitude for what Jesus did for her brother Lazarus, but also because of Mary's gratitude for why Jesus came to this earth and what he would eventually do here on this earth by giving up his life for us. This is why Mary saw it as worth it to pour it all out for Jesus, because he poured it all out for us. My prayer for you, Gateway South, is that you also would be willing to pour it all out for Jesus throughout your lives. That you would pour out all of your lives for Jesus. Why? Because of how much he loves you. Because of the gospel.